Hi, and welcome to Under the Dome with the City of Pearl. I'm Therese Apel, your Public Information Director, and we have special guests with us here today. Of course, we have Representative Gene Newman, who is with us fairly regularly, and we also have Representative Fred Shanks. We are excited to have everybody here today, and we've got a lot to talk about, some of which you guys are going to be like, yeah, what about that? But first, now, Fred, talk to me about you. Who are you? I know you hadn't been as long as Gene has been here, but how long have you been in the House? And kind of tell me about your personal life. Let's get
He's been in the House longer than I have.
I'm Gene's senior.
There you go. Okay.
Now, Fred Shanks, and I live in downtown Brandon, and I was a city alderman 100 years ago, and then I'd worked at Brandon Discount Drugs for 26 years, and when this position became available, I said I need a life change. And I just happened to, I ran for it. I didn't even know what the job really did. I never went to the Capitol. And then I ended up winning. I got in, absolutely love it. So this is coming up, this will be my 8th session. Mm-hmm. And I've been real fortunate to work with people like Gene. And in our Rankin County delegation, I would say we are the best, the strongest, and the most well-connected delegation at the state capitol. We all get along. We actually all like each other. So that's a big positive. And we've been able to do a lot for the city of Pearl, city of Brandon, Flowood, and the county itself. We've been able to do a tremendous amount because we got a good bunch of folks.
Absolutely. Well, and that's one of the things we've talked about a lot with Dean and Gene is the idea that everybody actually gets along, and what that does to help our area, what that does to help Rankin County.
Absolutely. I mean, we really communicate every day, and we all get behind each other with, if Gene's doing a bill or I'm doing a bill, we all get on the same page and support each other. And we just really have a strong foothold at the state capitol.
Mm-hmm. We sure do like knowing that too, as Rankin County residents. So we've got several things to talk about, but first, before we delve into that, we were just talking about how today maybe we'll actually, on a national level, we hope we'll hear about a new vice presidential candidate.
That's the rumor I keep hearing, is that it could possibly come out today. And in the Twitter world, it's they're saying possibly J.D. Vance. I keep hearing, and I've seen pictures that there's a lot of black Tahoes sitting out in front of his house right now.
Right.
So it kind of makes me wonder on that. But
that's a good indicator. Yeah. What do you think, Representative Newman?
I don't know. Trump tends to go with a black horse sometimes. So we'll just because everybody's expecting it to be this guy.
Could be Robert Kennedy.
It could be anybody with Trump. I mean, he's his own man. He's going to pick who he thinks can do the job. One thing he's specified, and that raises the question as to Vance, is one thing he keeps saying is he wants somebody that if something happens to him, they can take the job that day. Mm-hmm. And that's important. Mm-hmm. And that's, and normally you would think, well, that's probably going to be a governor because they've had executive experience before, whereas a U.S. senator or a House member might not have that experience. But you also got some guys that's U.S. senators that there's only 100 of them, and some of those guys are really smart. Some of them not so much, but some of them are really smart. So
some we wonder how they found the parking lot.
Exactly.
I can think of some that I wonder that about. And actually, it reminds me of that show Designated Survivor, where he ended up being the head of HUD or something.
Yeah, just hanging out.
Right, exactly. Well, and of course, after the incident Saturday, this is a big deal too. We have to actually think this is not just a running mate, but we live in a world now that, I guess we've always lived in a world that will do drastic things, but we saw that the other day.
Yesterday was kind of, to me, it was a little bit like 9/12, the after effects and kind of the uncertainty of what's going on in the country, and who's in charge and things like that. It really kind of hit home yesterday.
Absolutely.
After you had time to think about it a little bit. So.
Yep.
It's scary, but the scary part was that it was allowed to go down like it went down. I've been around police all my life, and it raises a lot of questions about what was going on there.
Absolutely, and I'll go ahead and say I got on Facebook and I stuck up for my friends that I've known several Secret Service agents through my life. I still know some. They're all very good people. They're very professional, very well trained. And when I saw everybody trashing the Secret Service, to be fair, I was thinking of those guys on the stage, those folks that got him off the stage. But then, of course, you look at the whole setup, and there are so many questions.
Right.
And what,
Well, you know,
what happened?
I think the Secret Service on the stage did their job as best Trump would let them. But
Yeah.
you know, there's you know, so much you can do with somebody when you're trying to get them down and keep them down. But and they're trying to get back up. But
He wanted to keep speaking.
yeah, he wanted to keep speaking. I don't
He
think
said, "Where are my shoes? I want my shoes," which is awesome, and he wanted to keep speaking.
Right.
Yeah, so anyway, you know, it's there, but there's way too many questions about how that shooter got on that particular building at that particular time. Somebody got something to answer for.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and there's so many rumors on Facebook now.
I
talked to somebody who knew us something, and
I don't
yes.
believe anything on Facebook anymore.
Tinfoil
Me
hats
either.
are coming out.
Exactly. Well, let's come back to Mississippi. So, Fred, you are the rules chairman. Talk to me about what that means, because I think we were just laughing about what are the rules?
Yeah. Nobody really knows. In fact, there's a funny story. I was at the well, which is the podium. We call it the well, and I was. I think I was introducing somebody, and as I was walking off, one of our colleagues, Jerry Turner, who had been the former rules chairman several years ago, he had a little rules book, and he said, "Hey, Fred," he said, "I want to give you this." He said, "This book really helped me out, and I want to give it to you. You're doing a great job." And man, I was just really touched. I was like, "Thank you so much, Jerry." So I took the book and I go sit down. I sit down right behind Gene. I think I told Gene right after I looked at the book, but I flipped through the book. It's blank. There's nothing in it. I was like, this explains the rules.
Right.
But, I was a little surprised. I thought, one of the committees that I was looking at, one of them was corrections, and I was on it and, kind of thought, maybe that's where I was headed. And then I talked to our speaker, and who he had been the former rules chairman, and he said, I got something for you. I want you to be the rules chairman. And I didn't really think about it, but it ended up being a really good fit. So you do it. There's a couple of different things you do. One, you meet pretty much every day. So it's the busiest committee in the House, and probably in the Senate as well, because Dean is the rules chairman technically on the Senate side. But the House operates under rules, and you have to have a rule for everything. It keeps things flowing, and if things get hung up, or if there's a deadline missed, or strategic purposes, you can do something called suspending the rules, and we had to do that quite a bit. It's almost like every day we had to suspend the rules.
Well,
it seemed like
that's part of the procedure, is suspending the rules to take up a bill, because otherwise we'd have to read every bill that come up. We'd have to take all that time. So, you have a third reading that is required when we bring a bill up. So every day, every time we take a bill up, we suspend the rules. Of course, everybody in Mississippi's heard about the chipmunks. So they have, if somebody gets mad, they can force all the bills to be read. And if it's a 2-page bill, reading the bill is not that big a deal. If it's a 150-page bill, reading that bill takes a long time. Even when we put it, we call it the chipmunk. It's an automatic reader. It reads the language, and when you speed it up real fast, it sounds like the chipmunk deal. So if we don't suspend the rules, it just stalls. It'll start killing legislation because you run out of time.
And to that point, the first big item that we did, the ballot initiative, and in order to do that, we did have to suspend the rules. That was one of the first things we did. It requires a 2/3 vote, which is a large majority vote, to do that. And that was kind of the first big the ballot initiative was kind of the first big test with our new speaker, to see, did he have, control of the caucus, and kind of set how things were going to go under his leadership. And of course, we suspended the rules, and we got the ballot initiative, and we ended up passing it as well and sent it down to the Senate. So that was right out of the gate. That was the first big thing we did. And then Gene, off air a minute ago, we brought up the SAFER Act, and that's something we're all real proud of. That basically defines what a woman is, as we all know.
What a man and a woman
Right.
is.
Yeah,
Right.
but and we got to meet Riley Gaines, the swimmer. Her roommate came to the Capitol, got to talk to her, and the bill kind of got hung up on some, I'll just say, politics. And we ended up missing the deadline. So I had to suspend the rules to bring that bill back up, and you know, it was something I was really proud of doing. And of course, we passed it, and you know, it's signed into law now.
So you don't make any rules. You just
No, I can, yeah. If I'm kind of more or less in charge of kind of, you know, who comes in to the Capitol, you know, if they have permission to be on the House floor, because right now it's just members or immediate family members. And yeah, there's a lot. So constantly, if anybody sees somebody on the floor, they'll come to, you know, tell me about it. And then I will obviously set the rules up of my committee as well. And I've really worked hard to streamline on that, because one of the things you do is if somebody comes in to, you know, somebody brings their mayor or their, you know, police chief to the Capitol and that you want to introduce them, you know, that's okay, but then you get 10 people that want to do it, and it will really kind of jam up our day. And I have some people that look at me and look at their watch and say, like, Fred, hustle this up, because I have to introduce them. So I've really streamlined the committee on how it operates, and, you know, try to do things respectfully but quickly. And but yeah, I mean, I could make a rule to burn that thing to the ground if we wanted to.
I was going to say, I don't know why
If you
you
get the
haven't
votes.
like.
Yeah. All it is you got to have the votes to do it.
Right. I don't
Yeah.
know why you haven't made a rule that, like, if you want to come speak to the House, you have to bring enough snacks for everybody.
That's a good rule. You know,
I think so.
and we can do that.
Yeah.
That is not going to be a problem. So,
The biggest, you know, what he's talking about, the introductions, is you'll have high school teams that win state championships, and so what he's done, which is all of the members really appreciate. He's put in rules that, you know, if it's just a state championship or just a normal, that's a big deal, but it's not national. So if
Sure.
it's not a national title or something to do with national, he has them go into the balcony and they introduce them from up there rather than bringing them onto the floor. We were bringing them onto the floor,
Yeah.
and it was taking forever.
Sure.
You bring 50 football players in, you know, and it just takes a long time. So he's done really good with this. He's streamlined it a lot. It takes a whole lot less time. You know, he gets these country western singers and these ballerinas and all that stuff, and he'll let them come down because, you know, they're famous people. But so I'm still working on him on that stuff.
yeah, well, we did have an astronaut, and that was pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
Astronaut, you're going to come on the House floor, and
Right.
then at Jimmy Buffett's sister.
Yeah, the
Lulu.
only one I don't fuss at him about is when he brings a World War II guy in there
Absolutely.
or
Absolutely,
anything
yeah.
like that. He can bring those all day long.
We-
We can just kill the day if he wants to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we roll the red carpet out for them.
Absolutely.
Glad to have them.
Yeah.
And you know, we had several this year. And,
Yeah.
You know, 100 years old or 100 plus. It
Yeah,
was
100
really
plus years
fascinating.
old.
It's really neat.
Yeah.
We're losing them guys
Yeah.
pretty quick now.
Yeah, the facility that my dad lives in, there's a man that's 103 years old.
Wow.
That was a World War II veteran. He can still tell all the stories.
Yeah.
Well, we had one guy come by, and he was over 100, and he was just we said, you know, you want to say a few words, and he took his time, and we were glad to hear it. But it was fascinating. He started talking about you know, things he ate on that day when he was in France and when he was here. He was there. His memory was just you know, astounding. It was really neat.
I wonder if it's the same guy. It might be.
Could be.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, okay, so I'm fascinated by the fact that the rules are just kind of fun. You can just
They
kind of
can
make
be.
them what they are.
So let me say, add this about the rules. So we can use rules to move legislation along fast, but we can also use rules to kill stuff. I mean, and we have rules that are very specific, and you know, we joke about that there's no rules and all that stuff, but we have rules that help us prevent bad legislation from getting passed, but at the same time, those same rules can be moved along, changed, not necessarily changed, but suspended, so that we can move legislation that is good. So, you know, the rules they're made for us to be able to do the right thing, not to run over people or to do anything. That's the most important thing about the rules is they're supposed to be fair to everybody.
Yeah.
And he's done a really good job at making sure that's level across the board. Everybody gets treated the same. So I'm proud of him for what he's done.
Good deal. Yeah, and you've got a reputation for being fair, so that's a good thing.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yes. Yes. So, okay, let's talk about another thing that kind of caught some attention when all this is going on. And it's one that it's kind of like back in the day when everybody's fighting over whether or not people should pull up their pants.
Yeah.
And everybody was
They
like,
still are.
"What's?" I guess so. So let's talk about the squatted truck bill.
Oh wow! Look, that has probably got more attention. That's not the most. I'm not proudest of that bill as
Sure.
opposed to some other ones, but that has got more attention than anything I've ever been a part of. We started, and I know Gene as well, we started getting a lot of calls from judges and our law enforcement community about, the safety of these squatted trucks. And to your viewers, if you don't know what we're talking about, usually it's a truck or a Tahoe, but they're raised in the front and they squat down in the back.
They
and
call it the
therefore-
Carolina squat.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
kind of where it originated from. Of course, Gina and I are big car guys, so we've been knowing about these and seeing them out there a lot. But the driver cannot see over the hood, probably 30 yards in front of them, and they have to sit on the edge of their seat. And we started hearing from obviously our law enforcement community. And then we started hearing, I heard from our hot rod community. They had a big car show down on the coast, and one of those trucks got behind the show car as they were leaving an event and just smacked the back of the show car. Couldn't see them.
Yeah, well, and just today, I had leaned the seat back in my car because I was wearing a bun the other day. And so obviously you just kind of sit up straight, and the back of the seat doesn't hit your head. And then when I got in the car today, it was like I drove away and whatever, and I was still sitting in the seat, but I was leaned back in it to where it was positioned just out of habit. And I realized I couldn't see. So I sat it up, and then I could see everything in front of me. And when I did that, I thought, and it was just incidental, I thought, oh, that's why those squatted trucks are bad.
Absolutely.
You
Similarly, a friend of mine has a auto shop, and he had one this past summer. It was a 4Runner, and it was squatted, really high or really low in the back, and it sat up in the front. I said, look, hey, let me drive that around the parking lot. And he said, yeah, go ahead. So I drove around the parking lot. You cannot see. You can't see to turn either because usually the wheels are so stretched out. And so firsthand, I've got the same experience. But the big linchpin of the whole deal was we heard in Smith County a young child had gotten run over by one of these because they were 15, 20 yards in front of the vehicle. The person couldn't see, and that was enough for me and everybody else. And we really need to do something here. So I got calls from California about that.
Wow.
Oh yeah. It was good and bad. Lately, everything's been good, but we were really trying to push it through. We got beat up pretty good on social media.
Well, and you guys are car guys, and I'm not really. Like, I've driven some muscle cars and pretended like I was before, but what is the appeal of a squatted truck? Like, what makes that something people want to do?
You want the truth?
Yeah.
Monkey see, monkey do. Some guy was working on his truck. He was doing a lift kit on his truck,
Yeah.
and he got the front end lifted up, and he didn't have enough money or didn't have the right parts, and he had to drive it for a couple of days like that. And somebody else saw it and said, "Oh, I like that," and it's just
Yeah,
one person
100%.
does it, and the
Gotcha.
other person starts doing it, and then they all got to do it. So, like I say, monkey see, monkey do.
Sure.
But like we are car guys and we do get it. We like, you like to fool with vehicles and stuff and do things, but when what you're doing is making it dangerous,
Yeah.
that's the key. And so there's a couple of trucks in here in Pearl, and I've seen those guys. I've seen it with the headlights is one thing, but when you got to drive down the road with your head stuck out the window to see where you're going,
Yeah.
that's something wrong with that. But I was hearing from grandmothers and mamas and daddies and everybody else that they're blinding me with those headlights. They got them stuck up in there. Well, the kicker to it is a lot of these trucks are just the lifted trucks. Is they put them lights? They put them LED lights in there and they're bright. So they're even with the level trucks and they're sitting up real high, they're still going to be bright.
Yeah.
So
Oncoming traffic is, as far as the public goes, I heard a lot of people reaching out because as you're coming, ahead of one, you're just totally blinded because they all have the LED high intensity lights on the front. But the way the angle is, it goes right to your eyes if you're driving. So
Right.
that's another big problem.
Well,
Well-
that's what, and the issue is you got the regular headlights are pointing up in the sky. They're not hurting anything. But then they put that LED bar down underneath it that's pointing ahead so they can see, and that's the one that's blinding everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah, when I drove a Mustang, all the LED lights on any kind of vehicle hurt my eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Now I'm in a pickup truck, and I've noticed that that's the ones I have a problem with.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
But how it goes is we gave them a grace period to get it fixed, and the shop owners should be extremely excited. So all the shop owners who, if they put these squatted lifts on, now they're going to have to come back and get it all done again. So they should be really happy.
Right.
But the first after the grace period, you're going to get first offense $100, second offense $200, third offense is $300, plus you lose your license for a year. So that's got some teeth to it,
sure.
and hopefully it doesn't get that far.
Right. You hope somebody's not driving down the road, going through a couple different jurisdictions and get popped in every one
There
of
you
them.
go. There you go.
Good reason to get your truck fixed. Okay, so this is one that's really close to my heart because I'm a big law enforcement supporter. You were the one who changed around the way the Board of Minimum Standards for police officers is going to work. Tell me what thought went into that as you kind of, I guess, came up with that idea.
Okay,
and
for
came up with that
starters,
bill?
back up and tell them that your background in law enforcement.
Yeah, I'm a reserve. I was a reserve sheriff's deputy and then also a reserve police officer. So I've been around it. My twin brother is now at Capitol Police. He's a major over there. So I've been around it a long time. And, doing that, I saw a need. And then just being an observer of our communities, I also saw a need for this bill. It's House Bill 691. Well, one day I heard the DPS Commissioner Sean Tyndall on the radio, and he was kind of alluding around that something needed to be done with like training and this and that, and it hit me. I was like, we really need to look at House Bill 691, and what it does is it changes the Board of Minimum Standards. So currently the Board of Minimum Standards, to those who don't know, is under DPS's control, but it keeps up with the law enforcement officer's certificate. And without that certificate, they're not, a police officer. And right now, if, so it keeps up with their training hours too, but if someone doesn't do the training or, a problem arises, really all it can do is just a slap on the wrist. And as you know, and we talked about earlier, that's a big problem.
Yeah.
And so what this will do is it'll do a couple of things. It reorganizes the board. I think it's going to be 13 members, and they will be from all over the law enforcement community, from like a campus police chief to a chief sheriff. AG's office will be represented there, and so on. And it'll actually give the board some teeth to look into things. So if there's some misconduct issues, there's going to be 2 investigators that'll be hired that'll be able to look into things. And if they find a certain crime or this and that they will actually pull your certificate. And it'll stop somebody who doesn't need to be in law enforcement. And also, right now, as far as continuing education goes and training, the only division that has to have that is cities or municipalities. So sheriff's departments and state level law enforcement don't. But under this bill, everybody's going to have to do it. So what that'll do, that'll give that officer will be better trained. The public and the department they're at are going to get a better product. So it's a total win.
Absolutely. And Mississippi already has a great reputation when it comes to both our support of our police officers, but also generally law enforcement from Mississippi tends to be, we have strong law enforcement communities here. So this just does even
it'll
more to
strengthen
strengthen
it.
us.
Absolutely. It really picked up some momentum midway through the session, and real proud of that. And then after, I've got several chiefs and sheriffs have reached out, either like, thank you, we really needed this, to, hey, I'd like to be on the board, because they're still doing the picking the board members now. And so everything's been positive all the after we did the bill.
Right. Well, and as a reporter, I've written so many stories about when officers went bad, and the question was, why is he still an officer? Why does he still have his badge? And even in some recent things, when they would get somebody, they would find a bad police officer, and they would ask the department that hired him, why would you hire this guy? They're like, well, his certificate was good.
That's right.
And that was, to me, the problem was that there was no accountability between an incident and the certificate.
Well, they wouldn't even, the police departments wouldn't even be aware of the
Yep.
incident that occurred.
Exactly.
They got him fired over here because what would happen was right before he got fired, he quit.
Yeah.
So it didn't show as a firing, and he would simply move over to another police department, and you just go, he just keeps swapping around. Well, the way it's changed up now, it's going to get real hard, because once he has an incident like that, then it's got to be reported, and if it involves hurting somebody or anything like that, or just verbal abuse, whatever it may be, that new police department that he's trying to go to has to be notified, and they have to know about it.
And I've even talked to police chiefs who let somebody go and then later heard they'd been hired by somewhere else.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, well, I couldn't do anything because he quit.
Yeah.
You can call that other department if you know that they are hiring him, but if you don't know that,
Yeah.
then
And unfortunately, on the flip side of what you just said, some departments are glad to get rid of somebody, and they don't say anything. So this should, prevent all of that, and it's just it does nothing but improve our law enforcement community as a whole.
Absolutely. And that's exciting. I'm glad that was part of what happened this year. Okay, so we've kind of covered all the topics that we had talked about, but is there anything else that you would want people to know that I don't know to ask you?
Well, I do get asked, and I'm sure Gene does as well, kind of like what we're going to do, next session. And, so the time now is when we're either coming up with ideas or in a bunch of meetings to try to figure out kind of what individually we're going to do. And, one of the things that both Gene and I had been working on last year, didn't quite get it across the finish line, was some suffrage bills. Say if someone, had been in prison and they get out and they're contributing member of society, and, right now what it is in what we had thought of was to do a 5-year period. And, if you're clean and, for 5 years, then you get your voting rights back. And I just think that's morally the right thing to do. And we worked really hard on it, and we got, in most bills, if your listener doesn't know, normally they take a couple of years to pass, if they do pass. So, that's something we had worked on, and, I'd like to continue working on that as well to get that across the finish line for next year. So.
Yeah, that's a good one. I was just sitting there thinking, generally you would assume, not to get into the politics here, but you would assume that would be more of a bill that would be proposed by a Democrat.
Yeah. Well, we kind of worked across the aisle on it, and just, we thought it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And it's getting a lot of talk right now, so we'll kind of continue working on that.
Good to go.
The issue is, to some people, you've been convicted of a felony, you shouldn't ever vote. Well, our Constitution lays out some specific items that you cannot vote, but you can never get your rights back. As long as that's in that Constitution, you can't. But there are other things that you should be able, if everybody makes bad choices at different times, sometimes bad choices get you in really, really bad trouble. So these folks that have made those bad choices, but they're trying to get their lives straightened out, they're trying to be productive members of society, they're back working, they're back doing the things that makes them productive members of society. And if they can do that, then why should they not be able to vote? Why should they not be able to get back on level footing? And that's what we're trying to do is to get them back on level footing.
Absolutely.
And to this there are certain crimes that this fits, and obviously violent crimes, anything like that, this does nothing with that. They stay the way they are. This is more like if somebody maybe embezzled something or some things like that, but not any violent crimes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what about you, Gene? Anything you want us to know that I haven't asked
Well,
you?
I've been, the last time I was here, we talked about the public property committee and all these visitations I've been doing. I've been to South Mississippi, to Southern Miss and all those places down south. And last week I was in Mississippi State and Ole Miss, and
you were at the right school.
I was at a bunch of junior colleges and Delta State, and there was like 8 or 9 colleges that we went to. So we've been doing all that, and they all have projects that they're working on, and they all have projects that they want to do. So,
yeah.
So I've been doing all that. Went to Whitfield out here, and I saw the improvements that they're making, and they're getting ready. For, we passed a law this year that one of the biggest problems that jails have is the number of people that they hold that are being held for mental illness.
Absolutely.
And they're just stuck there. They're not getting any help. And they can't get them into Whitfield or a mental health facility, and so they're just stuck in those jails waiting to get heard by a judge, and they're there for years sometimes. So we passed a law this year that requires them to be immediately moved to Whitfield or to one of the regional mental health facilities.
Right.
So they're making progress, getting ready for that. We have some really good people out here that operate at Whitfield, the doctors and folks that work out there that they're really working hard trying to make sure that they get folks taken care of. And we have a lot of mental illness nowadays that just seems to be creeping up a lot. So, but keeping people in jail because they're mentally ill is just wrong. It's just, but sometimes it's on where you keep them from hurting themselves or hurting somebody else. So we've got to do it better. So we're trying to. And then next sometime in August, the first part of August, I got to do one more tour, which will encompass most of Jackson, a lot of stuff in Jackson, and then down toward Natchez that way. But that'll end that.
Are you on that committee, the Jackson committee?
Yes, I'm on the Jackson.
I call it, we're on the Save Jackson committee. So there's a group of us who just got appointed. I totally forgot about this. We just got a letter in the mail that we're going to be on a committee to, help the city of Jackson. I'm really looking forward to it. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a little bit of work, but I think they've got everybody kind of in the surrounding area, to Jackson, like Gene and I, and we're really going to look at some ways to improve the city, which we want to do good. Yeah. We kind of get a bad rap sometimes, but as far as the legislature, it's our capital city. We want it to do well. And of course, Gene and I, we're close by. So I grew up in Jackson. So that's coming up.
Yeah. So we got that. And today, this afternoon, I think there's a meeting on the tax reform. Yeah. The tax reform committee trying to figure out how to eliminate the income tax and possibly cut the grocery tax. Yeah. So they're meeting today. I have a PBM committee that we meet tomorrow. So he's appointed about 6 or 7 special committees. Yeah. that will be looking at different subjects. So we was hoping we'd done all this work this year. We was going to slack off next year, but apparently not. So.
No, the speaker told us back in around December. Hey, we're going to be doing these, because usually your session, you might have one big policy issue and then everything else is just kind of your regular stuff. And it was not this year. We took on every big talking point there was. We took it on or discussed it. And I'm kind of like Gene. I thought we were going to kind of, take a little break. No,
right.
We've all got multiple letters to be on these different committees, and but I like that. Hey, we're working, we're trying to improve things, and it's really good. Really been proud of the new speaker and pushing things forward. So it's been fun for the most part.
Good. Well, hopefully next year will be fun as well.
Oh yeah. We're going to make it that way. I'll make a rule to make it that way.
Right.
I like that rule about bringing treats.
That's what I was going to say.
Oh yeah, that's done. I've already got that. That'll be the first thing we do.
That's right. I'm sorry you can't come in. You did not bring cookies.
Yeah, it's a rule.
Well, awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. This has been fun, and I love the colors we have going on here too.
We're representing today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I got blue and gold, so.
Yeah, you and I have on pearl colors.
Yeah, that's right.
Fred didn't get them out.
I'm just out there.
Well, at least he's got on pink and not red.
I should have worn maroon.
He's not repping that. Well, he could have. I wouldn't mind maroon, but repping that Brandon Bulldog stuff.
Oh yeah. I have a little bit of pearl in my district, so we're okay.
Well, that's the important part. So thank y'all for coming. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Anytime.
And to anyone out there that has been watching us, if you have any questions for either of our representatives, you can just give them a call. You can look them up online, and I believe both of their doors are open.
Absolutely.
My name is Therese Apel, and I am the Public Information Director here for the City of Pearl, and you've been watching Under the Dome. We'll be back next week. Join us.